cute and space these ones. Make sure you guys match. Sounds good to me. All right. Everybody still okay? Okay, cool. So what's the point of that? What are we trying to get kids to hear? Sorry? Fifths. Yeah, how most string players do, right? When you guys are sitting in orchestra, you're used to seeing everybody go. Right, that's what you're used to seeing us do, because we get you, okay, maybe not the basses. But the rest of us typically tune that way. And maybe not the chops. Okay, so prove me wrong. We tune, even if we're not doing double stops, we use fifths a lot to tune our instruments and to make sure that we're hearing that. So this is a great way to introduce kids to that. They're hearing it, and hopefully, they're hearing it and hopefully tuning and adjusting for it, but they don't have to deal yet with the mechanics of being on two strings and which one is it that's out of tune and all that kind of stuff. And what else did I do after we had the fifth going? What did we do after that? So one was on A, one was on D, and then what? We matched. We all went to D, right? Or we all went to G or whatever. We matched. So that then we've got a unified sound, and those kids who are really struggling with harmony can listen to unison and see if they match that way, okay? Nicely done, and I think everybody was okay. Anybody having trouble tuning? I was walking around trying to listen. It seemed like everybody was doing okay. All right, good stuff. Could you grab your folk song sheet, please? We haven't looked at that in ages. So pull that out for just a minute. Or on the melody side. Several of you have asked the excellent question about rosin. Could you look in your case and find the little cake or box or felt cover or whatever it is that has rosin in it? I told Dr. Gardner I was going to give you an hour-long dissertation on rosin today. He thought that was an excellent idea. I'm kidding, of course. 5 minutes max. non-string player, tell me what rosin does for us. Rosin creates friction. Excellent. What is rosin? JP? JP's voice through Thomas. Yes. Yes, it's sap, right? It's tree rosin. It comes straight out of tree. It's kind of like your maple syrup, just a very hard, condensed version of maple syrup. We put rosin on the bow, just as Thomas said, to give us friction, to give us better, literally it's just stickiness, so that we stick to the string better. Jesse, I think, found out last week, it is possible to be too sticky. Okay, if you put too much rosin on, it has the opposite effect. You stick too much and you get really scratchy. And Anna, if you would stop, because bases actually rosin differently. So I need to tell you guys what to do. Dr. Gardner and I were saying that the other day. We haven't told those girls it's different. I wonder if they've rosin the bow. So for you guys, it's okay. For you guys, rosining is just like playing on your instrument, and teachers very often use this as a chance to practice the bow hold. So would you do that, please? Set your bow on your rosin. Double check that you have the most perfect bow hand shape ever. And then would you run the bow 3 or 4 times, back and forth, up and down the rosin. Just 3 or 4, and then you're done. Okay? If you haven't ever rosined the bow this semester, you could maybe do 6 or 7. We should have talked about rosin a little sooner. Bases. The rosin for bases is so incredibly sticky, and the hair for bases tends to be a little thicker, and because of all of that stuff together, bases only rosin one direction. We don't go both. So if I typically just hold the rosin still and then just do a down bow. And 3 is probably more than enough. But bases do not go back and forth, or the crazy stickiness of the rosin can actually hurt the bow over time. Doing it a couple times is not the end of the world, but if you did it for months, it would hurt the bow. Okay? Okay, good. The rosin if you stopped. I appreciate that. Sometimes kids just keep going, so thank you for listening. And rosin, there's some amount of just perception and your decision to rosin. If you want to try putting a little more on, if you think it'll make a little better sound, you're always welcome to try a little more. Just do it little bits at a time. Don't sit there and rosin for a half hour, because then you'll definitely have too much. So try little bits at a time. And generally, every other time you play is a good rule of thumb. For the amount of playing you guys are doing, every other time you play, you should probably rosin the bow. If you play your instruments, I don't think I can get this. It's time for a new D string. If you have too much rosin and you do that, you'll get a cloud of rosin that comes off. That's a very good indication you have too much. Okay. And if you play and it just sounds really scratchy, you've probably rosined too much. Just keep playing, and over time it will come off the bow, and you'll even yourself back out again. You can see very clearly on mine, I need to wipe my instrument off too. I have a lot of rosin buildup on my strings. Some of you have cloths in your case to help with that. And also, with the amount that you are probably playing, you may not really notice much of that, because you don't play enough to really have it build up. It just kind of not evaporates, flies away, I guess. So look back at your folk song sheet, and let's go tell it on the mountain, and let's see whether you feel any difference in your bow now or not. Is that a question, Dickie, or just?
When did they do that? Like when they were like, let's put tree sap on?
I actually don't know. That's a great question. I'll bet Dr. Gardner knows the answer. I don't know when they decided that. The one last thing I wanted to say about rosin, is rosin is fragile and is pliable. If you drop your rosin on the floor, it will shatter into 1,000 pieces, and then we will all be sticky as we walk through it for the next week. So please be careful with your rosin. And the other side of things, rosin will melt. If you leave rosin sitting in your car in the middle of summer, you will come back to a puddle of tree sap all over your car, which of course would be awful and horrible. And particularly the base rosin. Base rosin is infinitely stickier than ours because they have crazy thick strings to grab, right? So their rosin is really, really sticky. They use much less rosin than we do because it's so sticky. And they often don't have to rosin quite as much as the upper strings do just because it's so thick. And theirs will melt much easier. I had base rosin that would change shape just overnight in my classroom, every day. So, my kids would play, we'd all go home, I'd come back in the next morning and look at the rosin, and it was a slightly different shape because the room was really warm overnight or whatever. So base rosin is like a totally different animal. You do not want to use base rosin on your instruments because it's too sticky. It will not be good. Last thing, and then I promise I'm going to be quiet. If you get a brand new bow that's never been used, never been rosin, it will not make a sound. Your bow, and it's hard to believe, but it's the truth. If you put that bow on a string and draw it across, it does not have enough friction to make a sound at all. You just get it's like white noise. It's an airy sound over top. Yes, string players, thank you for nodding your head. Yes, yes. She's not crazy. It's the truth. You don't get a sound. There are some teachers out there who, with violin viola bows, when they get a brand new one, they'll put a swipe or two of base rosin on it just to get it started. You can do that. It's not one of my preferences, but it has not shown significant damage to the bow or anything like that, so you can probably get away with it. Okay, I said I was going to stop talking. Let's play Go Tell It on the Mountain. Super easy. So, take again. Excellent work, ladies and gentlemen. Look at number 81 if you aren't already. What do you think the title is? Michael Rote the Shore. Yay! It's always good when you can recognize the melody at the end. What are the advantages of what I just did, minus a few mistakes? What, as your teacher hat on, put your teacher hat on. What am I getting the kids to do? What are some of my goals? Makes them listen a lot. Yeah, did you guys talk or pits at all while that was going on? No, you didn't. I didn't once have to stop and wait for the pizzicato to stop, right? I had your rapt attention. Good, what else? What's it getting the kids to do?
Work on your ear.
Working on their ear. Okay.
Memorization.
Memorization, yes, was that JT who said that? Yeah. Excellent. Right, you already know the first 4 bars of this, right? So you have to play it on the exam and you're like, I've already got it memorized, right? Good, all kinds of good things that come of that. Dr. Gardner likes to tell stories about he, at least once a year, would end up with laryngitis. And I maybe didn't have it quite that often, but you have days where you're just sick or whatever else, and it's hard to talk. And often those are some of your very best teaching days, or at least I hope they will be, because you have to get really creative with how you're going to get through to the kids and how you're going to do stuff. And of course, I'm spoiling all this now by almost talking. But I want to make sure you got your teacher hat on and you're thinking about those concepts and those techniques. So now you can actually look at Michael Rote the Shore, even though you know the first half. Let's give it a try all together. We will go on to the second half of it. Let me give you a little intro. And repeat. Yeah, let's do the second half a little bit. If I was with kids, I would have done the entire song hits. I would have broken it into an A and a B, and we would have done the 4 bars of A, and then the 4 bars of B, and then put them together. And we might have split that over 2 lessons, but I would have done the whole song. For you guys, I want us to get to the bow, so I wanted to just have you start reading. But let's clean up that second line a little bit. Can we do the